Greetings, everyone. This is John Contreras, Greek-American journalist. I am coming to you live from Glendale, California, a very beautiful suburb outside of Los Angeles, California. Today is the 17th of January, 2018. The time here is 4:57, almost 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm coming to you from this very beautiful outdoor mall, which I cannot remember the name of it right now, but it is absolutely gorgeous. We have several of these, like all over the LA area, also in the Orange County area. I'm going to try to show you some of the scenes right now, if I can. Just give me a second here, bear with me. Okay, here we are. So this is Glendale, California. Okay, this broadcast will be primarily, of course, in English for my English listeners. And it is being broadcasted for the Great Patriot Radio Network, UCY.TV. That is UCY.TV. Please visit that website today, where you can hear the radio broadcast of some of the greatest authors, activists, scholars out there, exposing the New World Order, which right now is spraying the hell out of our skies right above here in LA. So, besides all that, it's very beautiful here. So, basically, this is also being broadcasted for my YouTube channel, johncontreras.com. So, it's an absolutely beautiful area here. We have a lot of traditional Christian Armenian families that live here, ladies and gentlemen. And we have a lot of Greeks here, too, as well. All right. A lot of Greek people live in Glendale, but primarily Armenians and Arabs. And it is just a beautiful area. What can I say? So let's go back now and start this broadcast. It is a very special broadcast dedicated to the truth about what's really going on between Greece and the pseudo-Macedonian quote-unquote state, Skopje, which likes to call itself Macedonia, which only can wish and hope it were Macedonia, but it's not. It's just a fake state full of people that are basically Slavic in origin. That's it. We are GreekNewsOnDemand.com. That is the name also of this broadcast, by the way, Greek News on Demand, based off of our Greek News website, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. That is one word, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. Please visit that site today. Please visit our news blog today, where you can read all of our latest articles where we expose the New World Order. We primarily deal with articles that are like bombshell in nature. We don't try to be all things to all men. We only deal with the biggest bombshell news items of the day, okay? As you can see here, we publish both in Greek and in English. So just go through our news feed where you can basically, read all that you need to read, and so on and so forth. So, basically what I want to deal with right now, and we got about an hour here, is the whole Macedonian quote-unquote naming issue between Greece and Skopje. So, basically Skopje is just part of the former Yugoslavian Republic and so on and so forth, as most educated people out there know. Okay, they're Slavs, all right? Now, it's a huge issue, a major issue. What I like to do is cover it briefly, okay? We're going to cover it briefly, and what we're going to do then is get into some more details on the issue. And then what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how Macedonia, of course, is Greek, Hellenic, which is actually the proper name, Hellenic, and how Alexander the Great, of course, was a Hellene, a Greek, in other words, how he lived over 2,000 years ago, and how it was him that formed, the Greek culture and language that we know today, okay? This has been going on for over 2,000 years, ladies and gentlemen, okay? If it wasn't for Alexander the Great, we Greeks today wouldn't be speaking the language we're speaking. We wouldn't be organized as we are politically. We wouldn't have the religion that we have, because it was Alexander the Great who paved the way for the gospel of Jesus Christ to be spread throughout the whole world via Hellenism. Imagine that, okay? So, as you can imagine, what's going on now with this whole Skopje sort of issue is just totally freaking sinister. And it's meant, obviously, to destroy the Greek people, their culture, their heritage, and everything, okay? Because the New World Order is here, and the New World Order doesn't like nation states. It doesn't like nationalism. George Soros basically just declared war on nationalism. He said it outright. He said it's a threat to humanity and so on and so forth, okay? What a total... I don't want to use profane language here, but you know what I mean. So, first let's go over a few news items. So you got this big U.S. ambassador by the name of Mr. Nimitz, Matthew Nimitz, okay, who happens to be Jewish, okay? And according to reports, apparently he comes from this area that I'm describing. So let's go over that article, and excuse the background music. So, okay, so here we have this total psychopath here, Matthew Nimitz. UN mediator, very hopeful about solving Macedonia naming dispute, okay? A United Nations mediator has expressed optimism that a solution is within reach to solve a 27-year-old dispute over the name of the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, right? He says, I'm very hopeful that this process is moving in a positive direction, he says. The UN envoy dealing with the matter, Matthew Nimitz, he's the U.S. envoy, okay, to the United Nations, dealing specifically with this issue. Okay, he said this today following a meeting with diplomats from the two countries at UN headquarters in New York. Okay, that was today, January the 17th, 2018. Okay, during the talks, the mediator presented to Macedonia's ambassador. Okay, notice now how they're using the term Macedonia. And I'm going to go over that right now, okay? I'm going to go over that right now. The mediator presented to Macedonia's ambassador to the United States, Vasco Namovsky, and Greece's negotiator, Adamandios Vasilikis, a proposal for a compromise, notice the word here, compromise, that will now be discussed in Skopje and Athens, right? Notice now we're using two terms here to describe these Slavic people, Skopje and Macedonia, okay? So there's going to be a compromise, he says, that will now be discussed in Skopje and Athens. Interesting, right? Okay, so Nimitz said he will travel to Macedonia, there we go with that term again, and Greece, soon to discuss the proposal, which he did not disclose, okay? He's being a little discreet about it, but towards the end of the day, he became sort of explicit, and I will explain that. But he said, I myself don't think it's realistic to expect the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, that's its full official quote-unquote name, official quote-unquote Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, not to have Macedonia in some form of its name. Okay? So this right here says it all. He straight out says, this country, in other words, called the Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, right, has to have, okay, it has to have the name Macedonia in its future name. Okay? It has to. Well, according to official, to its official, let's say, de facto name, it already does, okay? Now, so back in like 1992, the then Greek government of Konstantinos Mitsotakis basically agreed with Skopje and the United Nations that they would be called FYROM, former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, okay? So basically at that time, the Greek people vehemently protested against this for obvious reasons, okay? But the Greek government didn't give a flying you-know-what and did it anyway, okay? So this is in no way the fault of the Greek people. What the Greek people should have done back then, though, was take down their government and hang the traitors, especially Mr. Konstantinos Mitsotakis. Why? Because they agreed that Skopje would basically be called the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, FYROM, okay? F-I-R-O-M, okay? That's the acronym, all right? Now, this issue dates way back to Tito after World War II, okay? The communist dictator there in Yugoslavia. who basically, decides to declare that a portion of his people, okay, this whole empire was broken up anyway, so that a portion of this people was to be called Macedonia in the future. This is already in the works by some huge communist party in that same area of the world back in the early 1930s. But what Tito did was he continued this policy, okay? Now, bearing in mind that back then, we're talking now 1944, okay? The then U.S. government saw what Tito was doing and was very upset with him, very angry with him. And what did they do? They basically issued a sort of major pronunciamento, okay, a major declaration. In other words, that through its ambassador, I guess, to that area, I can't remember the guy's name, that basically what Tito was doing was like totally underhanded and against Greece's efforts, and that it was a covert political attack against Greece. Okay? That's what he said. The then U.S. ambassador of the FDR government. And even though FDR was completely corrupt, even though he was socializing the whole world at that time, all right, even though he had already turned America into basically a private corporation and every citizen into a private corporation via the sinister and underhanded Emergency Banking Act, it's a huge issue, all right, somehow members of his government still at that time decided to defend Greece. And of course, after World War II, you have the whole Marshall Plan, all right? Now, the whole Marshall Plan was a kind of catch-22. It was meant to help nations rebuild after World War II, which did happen in the case of Greece. Greece got like millions and millions of dollars to rebuild, but it also basically made America big brother over these nations, okay? And this paved the way, of course, for many other disastrous policies of the U.S. It paved the way for their pseudo-Cold War with Russia, yes, and many other sinister activities that they were doing back at that time, okay? But at least back at that time, the U.S. government did say that what Tito was doing, okay, by naming a certain portion of this people Macedonia was completely underhanded and against Greece's best interests. Okay, so let's go back to the article. Okay, so he's saying now the name Macedonia must be included in its new name, okay? And I'm going to explain to you, too, why Macedonia needs a new name, what this means for Greece, and, I'm sorry, Skopje, I shouldn't have used the term Macedonia. Why Skopje needs the name Macedonia, what this means for Greece, what's the whole ulterior motive behind this, okay, for the United States, for the UN, and so on and so forth. And then he says, continuing with Nimitz's quotes, we should know whether we can make some good, serious progress, end quote. In the next 2 months, Nimitz said, adding that the issue could be solved in 6 months. Greece's objection to Skopje's use of the name Macedonia since the country's independence in 1991 has complicated the bids of the former Yugoslav Republic to join the European Union and NATO. And now we're getting to the meat of the matter. This is very key. Nimitz on January the 15th told the Greek state broadcaster ERT, okay, that he thinks, quote, people in both countries are maybe ready to hear some solutions that are consistent with national interests, but also have some element of compromise that would resolve the problem, end quote. Compromise. The element of compromise. Okay, he's straight out saying right now, basically, that the Greek government's going to compromise on this issue, which is what we sort of covered earlier in this article. There's the whole element of compromise here, okay? The Greek government wants to compromise, okay, but not the Greek people. This is what I want to basically stress here. The Greek government is completely bought and paid for, okay? They're not standing up against the Troika and the United States government and the IMF in particular for the evil that they have done to them the past 7+ years via basically the whole memorandum agreement, okay, regarding the, this economic crisis which seems to have no end, okay? So the Greek people are not to blame here. The Greek government is. So Nimitz, continuing here, who has been trying to broker a solution to the dispute since 1994. Look at this. Since 1994. Said he recently has seen some positive momentum, quote unquote, on the issue. As Athens says, the use of the name Macedonia suggests Skopje has territorial claims to Greece's northern region of Macedonia. Look at this here. Which includes the port city of Thessaloniki, the biggest city, basically, in Greece after Athens. It's the second biggest city in Greece. Okay? Now, this is very true. At least some people in the Greek government have had the guts to basically mention this, that Skopje has major irredentist claims, okay, on Greece, via this whole Macedonian quote-unquote naming issue. In other words, they're using this whole issue, this whole naming issue, in order to basically claim everything, okay, all things Macedonian for themselves. So if they're called Macedonian, in other words, imagine what's going to happen. Can you imagine if they call themselves Macedonians? They're then going to basically say, well, they've already said that they're the descendants of Alexander the Great, which is just utterly freaking stupid, okay, and retarded. They're not. So then, of course, they're going to tell the international community, well, since we're Macedonia, then we ought to take all that territory in Greece, which is called Macedonia too, including Thessaloniki, the second biggest city in Greece. And don't hold it past the United States, ladies and gentlemen. If this happens, believe me, the United States will give it to them, because the United States cannot have a strong, powerful Greece, because Greece is the light of the world. Greece has offered everything to Western civilization, okay? Everything is based off of Greek in the Western civilization. Whether you're talking about language, whether you're talking about culture, the Greeks gave everything to the world, okay? There was 3 major empires in the world: the Greeks, the Chinese, the Persians, and so on and so forth, okay? We were one of the greatest empires. We helped build the world and make it what it is. If it wasn't for the Greeks, there would be no Roman Empire. There would be no Greek, Christian Byzantine Empire, the greatest empire ever on the face of the earth, that lasted over 1,000 years, and so on and so forth, and which basically helped maintain a moral preserving force in the world and spread the light of the gospel of Christ, of Jesus Christ, around the world. Okay? The world was a wonderful place when we Greeks were in power. But when we fell, okay, due to the Ottoman Turks and of course to the black nobility in Venice in 1453, then also began to fall Europe, okay, into chaos, into the so-called European Enlightenment period, which is nothing more than a period of spiritual and intellectual darkness, which has led to the world to the position that it's in today, okay? And if you're a person who knows about the New World Order, I'm sure you probably know about this too by now. Now, I have 2 books that go over all of this. The first one is called Your Academic Guide to the Greek Language, Culture, and Civilization by John Katuris. You can find that, by the way, on my website, johnkaturis.com, okay, which I'm going to pull up. I'm going to pull up for you right now. So that book, Your Academic Guide to the Greek Language, Culture, and Civilization by John Katuris, you can just Google the term, and it'll come up for you immediately. It'll be like the first search result, obviously. So I have it published right now on Amazon's Kindle. You can order a hardback via Amazon, okay? So that book will go over basically Greece, its glory, okay? Its periods of glory from ancient times to the Christian period, to the Greek Christian Byzantine Empire, how it ruled the world, what it offered to the world, the power and the mystery behind the Greek language, and how all European languages are a subset of the Greek language. And then it gets into how the Greek Christian Byzantine Empire fell, and who was behind all that. Well, it was nothing more than the then form of the New World Order, okay? Out of the black nobility from Venice, in cooperation with the Ottoman Turks, of course. And, of course, world Jewry played a major role in this, too, okay? I go over all this in the book, and I explain something to all the so-called truthers out there, the people that like to expose the New World Order but don't really know too much about it, okay? They like to make YouTube videos and rant and rave, Yet they don't know really how the New World Order started, who was behind it, what's the whole purpose behind it, and so on and so forth. The purpose behind the New World Order, ladies and gentlemen, is to destroy Hellenic Christianity, which has made the world what it is. Okay? Christianity, first of all, wouldn't exist today if it wasn't for the Greeks. Okay, the Greeks, okay, took over for the so-called Israelites when the New Testament period started as the chosen people of God. Now, when I speak of Israelites, I'm talking about the biblical Israelites. I'm not talking about the Khazar Jews today that illegally run Palestine, okay, with the consent, basically, of the United States. And with, of course, at the expense, of course, of world public opinion and so on and so forth, okay? We know about them. They're all pseudo-Jews, they're Khazars, and they worship you-know-who from the abyss with the inspiration, let's just say, of the Talmud and the Zohar and so on and so forth. All right? That's another issue. But really, these people are, of course, behind what's going on with Greece right now. This is a Zionist Jewish plan to destroy Greece, no doubt. So, Greece gave everything to the world. Okay? There would be no Christianity today if it wasn't for the Greeks and so on and so forth. All right? The Apostle Paul passed on, basically, the calling of God to the Greek people. That is a very well documented fact, both in the Bible and, of course, in church history. All right? No one can deny this. Anyway, besides all that, what I want to say, though, is that the role that the Greek people have played is very, very critical to understand, basically, how the New World Order started, okay, and how we can beat it. The way we're going to beat it is by going back to our Greek Christian Hellenic roots, our Hellenic Christian roots, okay, and getting rid of this pseudo form of Christianity today called Zionist Christianity, where you have all these Christian groups, primarily the Protestants, who say the Jews are God's chosen people and all this garbage, right? I think it was Netanyahu who said 2 days, it was Netanyahu who said 2 days ago in some big conference in India that the greatest literature books that have ever been written were written by Jews. Give me a freaking break, you sick SOB, honestly. So, once we get rid of, ladies and gentlemen, this pseudo form of Christianity and this whole voter base here in the United States, by changing their opinion, obviously, with the truth, by getting them to switch over to Hellenic Christianity, in other words, Greek Orthodoxy, then you know what's going to happen? They're going to stop voting for people in Congress and for presidents that support Israel. And they're going to say, you know what? We used to think the Jews are God's chosen people, but you know what? It's really the Greeks. They offered everything to the world, including Christianity. That is a fact. Can you imagine when we get millions and millions of Americans on our side to start supporting Greece, what's going to happen? Now, with regards to the book, though, before I forget, so basically, getting back to the books, okay? Let me see here. Getting back to my books, if you check out johncontreras.com, all right? Let me show that to you really quick. And let me try to turn the phone here if this works better. Okay, I can't rotate my device while live. Anyway, forget that. All right, we'll just leave the device like this, all right? So, basically, when you get the book, it's going to go over all this and educate you thoroughly on what I'm talking about. Okay, so here I am right here, johncontreras.com. Okay, you can visit that there and learn more about me and the work that I do as a journalist and activist and author. Here are the two books. The first one is Your Academic Guide to the Greek Language, Culture, and Civilization, which I just described. The second one is Hellenic Crisis, which goes over the Greek crisis on all fronts. It's not just a financial crisis. It's a cultural crisis. It's a religious crisis. It's a crisis, a political crisis where Greece is, basically being attacked on all fronts by the New World Order, by America's policies, by Israel's policies, by the European Union's policies in order to destroy Greece, steal its identity, steal its natural resources, and kick the Greek people to the curb, as well as even exterminate them. And I'm not even exaggerating here. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to sort of show you my face like this, and then, read the rest of this. Okay, so here we go. Let's read the rest of this here. Athens says the use of the name Macedonia suggests Skopje has territorial claims, as I read before, to Greece's northern region of Macedonia, which includes the port city of Thessaloniki. Okay? So like I said before, can you imagine if the world community recognizes that Skopje has full rights over Macedonia, what this means for Greece? Okay? And if this happens, this will be sent as a horrible precedent, okay, for Greece to be attacked by other nations like Albania. Then Albania is going to say, well, that, area that borders Greece and Albania, that belongs to us too, all right? And believe me, they're already alleging that. And that's why right now they have a very good working agreement, political sort of agreement in the works with Italy, where Italy is providing them with heavy sophisticated military equipment, which is very disconcerting for us as Greeks. And not to mention, of course, what Turkey's doing to us by, flying over our Aegean Sea, our islands every day and threatening us, telling us that they're going to take over a major portion of Greek islands, so on and so forth, because the Treaty of Lausanne, according to Erdogan, has been revised, quote unquote, or needs to be revised, quote unquote, because it's old and outdated and all this garbage. Okay, give me a break. All right. So anyway, continuing. However, the Security Council has agreed that it is a provisional name. Okay, it is a provisional name. All right. Macedonia has also been admitted to the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund under the FYROM moniker. This is very key. Once you become part of the IMF, okay, and the World Bank, that means now you're basically property of these two private corporate banks that were designed by the Rothschilds and all their cohorts years ago to basically rape and rob countries, okay, through their financial policies in cooperation with these countries' governments, okay? It's because of the World Bank and the IMF that Greece is being raped and robbed right now, okay? The IMF is leading the Greek bailout, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just the European Central Bank and the European Commission and so on and so forth out of Brussels. It's the IMF, which is nothing more than the United States' Treasury Department. The IMF is the Treasury Department, according to presidential documents and so on and so forth, right? When a government check is issued to you, when a government document is printed out for you, it's done by the IMF. It's not done by the Treasury anymore. The Treasury is done away with in 1921, 8 years after the illegal founding, 8 years after, and in conjunction with the illegal founding of the United States Federal Reserve Bank, which is not federal. It's as federal as Federal X. Okay, it's a private corporation. Okay, that rules the United States government today, that controls the government. The Federal Reserve is the government. Okay, and so the IMF and the World Bank are sort of the banking governments of many countries around the world, including Greece now. Right now, the major shareholder of the IMF is the United States. Okay, and the IMF is controlled by the Treasury Department. Really, the Treasury Department is the IMF if you look at it. There are many nations that contribute to it, but in the end of the day, it's the U.S. Treasury that controls the IMF. The U.S. Treasury is a private corporation founded in Puerto Rico, the U.S. Treasury that we know today, along, of course, with the IRS, which operates under the color of law with the name the Bureau of Tobacco, Alcohol, and Firearms, and so on and so forth. Continuing, most countries, including Russia and the United States, recognize the country's constitutional title, the Republic of Macedonia. This is very key, especially for all the so-called New World Order people out there who, like I said, just make YouTube videos, but they don't really study in depth what's going on with the New World Order and who's behind it. Did you know, ladies and gentlemen, that the New World Order includes every freaking nation out there on the planet, including Russia? So don't give me this BS, basically, that, oh, Putin's fighting the New World Order. No, he's not. He's part of it. He's announced time and time again that he is paving the way for the New World Order too on his part in Russia. Okay? He's doing it also in conjunction with the BRICS companies. Brazil, China, Russia, India, and so on and so forth. And don't give me this crap that they're fighting the Rothschild banks. They are not fighting anything. They are controlled by the Rothschilds. BRICS was designed by the Rothschilds. I mean, people who keep saying stuff like this about Putin, they absolutely know zero about him. Okay? He just said the other day, ladies and gentlemen, that communism is so wonderful. It reminds him of Christianity. And that Lenin's mausoleum in the Red Square in Moscow, reminds him of the relics of the Christian saints. Excuse me? You're comparing the Christian holy saints with that dirty, filthy Jew Lenin? Oh my God. He's starting to really like show his true self now. Honestly, he is. Okay. So, like I just said, every freaking country around the world recognizes, ladies and gentlemen, Skopje as Macedonia, including Russia, which says a lot about Russia's love and devotion for their fellow Orthodox brethren in Greece. They could care less about Greece. They're only concerned about their political agenda. Okay? Macedonia became a candidate for EU membership in December of 2005. These are all very key facts here, which are leading up to this whole climax with the so-called Macedonian naming issue with Greece. Okay? But EU member Greece blocked the start of negotiations, which must be agreed upon unanimously by all EU states. This is very key here. Okay? But EU member Greece blocked the start of negotiations, which must be agreed upon unanimously by all European Union states. Okay? Let's now go to NATO, the NATO issue. Macedonia in April 2008 also presented itself, as a candidate for NATO membership under the provisional FYROM name, the name that I just described to you, okay? But Greece, a member of NATO, again vetoed Macedonia's membership. Very key political period here. This is exactly 10 years ago, okay? And what I'm about to describe to you too, with regards to this issue, is exactly what has led Greece into the situation it is today. This issue is a lot more deeper than we thought it was. The military's alliance's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg is due in Macedonia later on January the 17th, which is like today, for talks on the country's renewed access bid. This article was published like a few hours ago. The military's, Macedonian Prime Minister Zoran Zaev said earlier in January that he thinks the dispute could be resolved by July. Okay, notice all these dates right now, okay? And I'm going to tell you something. The United States and the European Union are literally holding the gun to Greece's head with regards to this issue and telling them, deal with this issue now, or else we're not going to basically give you your bailout money. Greece is going to continue to be impoverished and basically be in a horrible economic situation and this and that. The Greek people will continue to suffer and this and that. All right? So, Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras, the communist, who's part of the Communist Party Syriza, has said a solution should be found before the end of 2018. Okay, now, Mr. Nimitz, Matthew Nimitz, who happens to be Jewish, okay, and according to reports, apparently he's from that area of the world, Skopje. So is Barbara Bush, okay, and so is the former, listen to this, former Skopje president, Gurevsky, okay? No, I'm sorry. Gurevsky is not actually. It's the exact opposite. I forgot to tell you. Gurevsky, who played a major role in this whole naming issue, he's actually Greek. That's what I wanted to tell you. He's Greek. A lot of those people over there, ladies and gentlemen, have Greek blood, unfortunately. But they basically have been taught in the school systems and by the government that Skopje, okay, the Slavs, are Macedonian, okay? Give me a break. A lot of Greeks do live in that country and are obviously being threatened by this whole issue right now, all right? Now, the people in Skopje are sort of divided on the issue. A lot of them believe that they are the descendants of Alexander the Great, which is just so retarded. A lot of them believe basically that they're not, and they support Greece, all right? So they're kind of divided over there, all right? Now, what I want to tell you, though, is that back during 2008, it was the then Greek Prime Minister Kostas Karamanlis, all right, who basically was dealing with this whole issue on his part at the United Nations, okay? And basically at that time, Skopje was pressuring Greece, okay, to allow it to be called Macedonia, all right? Now, basically, Mr. Konstantinos Karamanlis was just utterly disgusted with Skopje, and he basically told them, you know what, if you're going to continue to threaten us with the naming issue, screw you. We're going to veto your bid to enter NATO, okay? We're going to veto it. We could give a rat's ass if you were to join NATO or not, okay? Because the fact that you continue to basically threaten us on the Macedonian naming issue, okay, to us that speaks volumes. So basically, screw you. We're not going to let you join NATO, all right? So when he did that, you know what he did? He pissed the hell out of George Bush, the U.S. government, the European Union, and many other people. He made them very angry. And it wasn't just that made him angry, ladies and gentlemen. And now, back then, Mr. Konstantinos Karamanlis, the then Greek Prime Minister in 2008, told Skopje, we're not going to allow you to be named Macedonia, all right? Not only that, if you continue to pressure us, we're not going to let you enter NATO, which is exactly what happened, all right? Greece vetoed Skopje's entry into NATO because of the naming issue, because of the pressure that it received from Skopje regarding the naming issue. This really pissed off George Bush. It pissed off the American government. It pissed off the European Union, and so on and so forth, all right? It wasn't just this though, that Karamanlis did that angered all these people. It was also because he wanted to make Greece a strong nation again by forging closer ties, of course, with Russia through two major energy agreements, gas energy agreements, Burgas Alexandroupoli and South Stream, okay? Google those two terms, Burgas Alexandroupoli, South Stream, Kostas Karamanlis, and you'll see exactly what I mean, all right? So he was doing all this stuff to make Greece a great nation again, and he didn't want the United States and any other nation, for that matter, telling it what to do. So, guess what happens on December the 6th, 2008? Okay? 9 years ago. A young boy in the street of Athens, okay, by the name of Alexis Grigoropoulos, is apparently shot by the police, right, in cold blood, during a period when Greece was already in a bunch of political turmoil, right? They were just commemorating how Henry Kissinger surrendered the northern part of Cyprus to the Turks. The world economic crisis was going on, so there's a lot of tension in Greece. So when this young boy is killed by the cops, all of Greece erupts into utter fury and begins to basically riot like crazy. That's when I started my career as a journalist. I took a lot of video, I uploaded it to CNN, and they gave me 5 live interviews to do on TV and on radio and on internet live. So basically, I told the whole world through their audience what was going on in Greece at that time. But little did I know that this was all a plan, ladies and gentlemen, of the Rothschilds, of the New World Order, okay, of the United States government, to get rid of Kostas Karamanlis. Because all of this put him into a crisis period. The people behind this were none other, of course, then the State Department, and of course Daniel Speckhard, the then U.S. ambassador to Greece, whom I met, by the way, the night of the elections, okay, in 2008, when, McCain and Obama were going neck and neck. I met him in Athens at a Greek Republicans pre-election party, and I told him straight out, basically, that we Greeks didn't like the fact that the United States was meddling in its business all these years, and he agreed with me too. He agreed with me that that was wrong, basically, right? But little did I know that it was he himself who was working together with the CIA, the State Department, Israel, and so on and so forth to get rid of Kostas Karamanlis. I learned that a few years afterwards, ladies and gentlemen. And at that time, when I had met him and I was shaking his hands, he was involved in this sinister plan. Yes, you heard that correctly. So, besides all that, Kostas Karamanlis, ladies and gentlemen, what happened to his government was very crucial because all these forces that I'm mentioning caused the collapse of his government, right? And then the Bilderberg Group basically agrees to put George Papandreou in power in October of 2009 to lead Greece into the memorandum period. Oh yes, all these issues that I'm mentioning to you, they're all interconnected, right? So then what happens is Greece is led into the situation it is for the next 7+ years, up until like right now. Greece is still going through this. There seems to be no end in sight, all right? And the funny thing is, the strange thing is that in the midst of this whole economic crisis, as it deepens and gets worse, this whole naming issue with Skopje comes up again, rears its ugly head again, and is now pressuring Greece. That's why I'm telling you, if Greece doesn't cave to this, the powers that be will continue its misery with the economic crisis and God knows what else. These events are all connected, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you right now. This is a fact. So, Kostas Karamanlis paid a huge price to basically keep Macedonian Greek, in other words. Okay? So that was something that I definitely had to go over and cover. Now, we went over a little bit of the historical aspect of all of this, all right, with Tito back in the 40s, all right? This issue came up again in 1959 because the then Greek government of Kostas Karamanlis' uncle, Konstantinos Karamanlis, actually, okay, agreed in secret, listen to this now, for Skopje to be called Macedonia. I kid you not. Now, Kostas Karamanlis was pretty much a very good Greek prime minister, okay? He was putting Greece first. His uncle, though, Konstantinos Karamanlis, was a complete fraud, okay? He took over for Greece in 1974, whereupon the Greek junta fell. He took over, of course, at the behest of the U.S. State Department and Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger helped put him in power, okay? They got rid of the righteous Greek junta, which basically put Greece in order for 6+ years, okay? They were a military junta, but they were a military junta, okay, the Greek government then. It was a military junta because it had to get rid of the threat of communism. Communism, at that point in time, we're talking about the mid-60s, had already reared its ugly head all over Europe for years and had done major damage. It was already doing major damage in Greece. So the Greek junta decides to take over the whole situation there and get rid of it. And rightly so. And they built up Greece on all fronts. They made it what it is today economically, with regards to its infrastructure, everything. Okay? Modern Greece was built, okay, on the backs, basically, of the junta. The junta basically made Greece what it is on all fronts, all right? If it wasn't for them, Greece would still be like in third world conditions, all right? I'm serious. I'm not even kidding here, all right? They would be in third world conditions. It's not like they weren't they were already. No. But what they did was they helped take Greece to a whole new level, all right? And they helped Greece economically. Greece had the second biggest economic growth rate to Japan at that time. Okay, they were doing wonderful. But because the junta didn't want to play ball with the United States and Israel, they had to be taken out. Sound familiar now? So this happened in like the fall of 1973, whereupon the United States government and Kissinger got rid of the junta leader George Papadopoulos with the help, of course, with the help of the Israeli Mossad. Now, the Greek junta, of course, fought for Macedonia too, all right, for Greek Macedonia and so on and so forth. Now, In 1959, though, as I stated earlier, the Greek government was already secretly selling out Greece. Now, from that period up until the start of the junta, it was a relatively good period in Greece, political and economic stability. When the junta came along, things were taken to a whole new level, economically, socially, spiritually, culturally. But when the junta fell in 74, then started, let's say, for example, the dark ages of Greece. Or as liberals in Greece would put it, the so-called European Enlightenment period of Greece. They like to call it the metapolitesis. In other words, the post-political period, right? Where Greece is now being modernized. And they're now conforming to the New World Order. Okay? So every successive Greek prime minister since that period, 1974, has been basically a crypto Jew and has done utter damage to Greece on all fronts, economically, spiritually, culturally, and so on and so forth. Greece is in the situation it is in today because of all these people that rule. I'm talking about, for example, Konstantinos Karamanlis, Andreas Papandreou, Kostas Simitis, okay, and so on and so forth. George Papandreou, okay, Antonis Samaras, and now we have Alexis Tsipras, a complete bubbling idiot who doesn't know his left nut from his right nut. Excuse the expression, but it's true. They're all traitors. They're not even Greek, and they have destroyed Greece, all right? Now, these people have led to Greece to the point that is in today on all fronts, not just with regards to this naming issue, but on all fronts. And all these families need to be utterly wiped out of Greece. They're the ones that have destroyed Greece, and I'm not even joking when I say that. They have destroyed Greece on all fronts. They have caused it to conform to the New World Order, and it's these families which are still around, even though their matriarchs and their patriarchs have died. Their offspring are still alive and well, and they're trying to take over. Now, they've already taken over Greece. They've already ruled Greece. But they're the ones that are continuing the destruction of Greece on all fronts. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And they all just need to be wiped out. Because it's because of this filth that has basically destroyed Greece. Culturally, spiritually, financially, you name it. They've completely sold out Greece to the New World Order. So, now that we've gone over all of this, all right, what I want to do is just go over a little historical background with regards to the whole Alexander the Great issue, all right? If it wasn't for Alexander the Great, ladies and gentlemen, there would be no Greece, okay? All of you probably have seen the movie Alexander with Colin Farrell. That movie is just utterly freaking disgusting and stupid. That was Jewish Hollywood, basically, mocking and attacking Greece through this utterly stupid depiction of Alexander the Great, okay? Through Colin Farrell's acting, right? Where they depict Alexander the Great as a homosexual and all this garbage, right? Which is a total affront to the Greek people, right? Don't see that movie. There's other movies that have been done in Hollywood, like in the 50s, I believe, where they did a okay job portraying Alexander the Great. You see those movies, all right? Now, Alexander the Great, what he did was he got all the Greek tribes during that era, all right, in the 300s before Christ, to go along with the same political agenda for all of Greece, okay? He wanted all of Greece to be united, so the way he did that was he got all the tribes together in order to agree on politics, but also to agree on one common Greek language. It's called the Kini dialect. According to the Erasmian pronunciation, it's Koine dialect, all right? Kini, Koine, K-O-I-N-I in English. Well, actually, it's K-O-I-N-E in English, all right? Koine, they say. So, it was because of this dialect that Alexander the Great was able to unify all the Greeks, all right? Through a common Greek language. You can call it common Greek. It was that Greek that was used to write the gospel of Jesus Christ, all right? And it was because of this form of Greek that I'm talking about right now that the gospel of Christ was able to be spread across the whole world at that time, which was Hellenized, which is Greek. In other words, all the nations of the world at that time were Hellenized. They spoke Greek, basically, almost all of them. And they were able to learn about the gospel of Jesus Christ due to this common form of Greek that Alexander the Great created. So, in other words, not only did he get all the Greeks on the same page linguistically and everything else, but he got the whole world on the same page hundreds of years later via the spread of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, the Bible, of course, talks about Alexander the Great. In the book of Daniel, it refers to him as the king of Greece. Even the Jewish Talmud speaks of Alexander the Great and talks about basically how he went to Jerusalem and he spoke with the high priest, right? There in Jerusalem. And the high priest showed him the scriptures where it is prophesied about him, right? And Alexander the Great was just like, damn, this is about me? No, right? And he's just like tripping out. This is recorded in the Jewish Talmud. This is recorded in other religious books. Okay? So, when these dumbasses from Skopje try to say they're Macedonian and that Alexander the Great was a Slav, number one, they're stupid. Number two, they don't even know history because they're all brainwashed. So please shut the F up and quit calling yourself Macedonia, you fucking dumbasses. Okay? Excuse the French, but it's true. This is an issue that has completely enraged the Greek people for years, and it just needs to stop here and now. For them to say that they are the descendants of Alexander the Great, it's just utterly mind-boggling. Really, honestly, it is. Now, there's other religious and historical books out there that talk about Alexander the Great being Greek. Okay? 55% of ancient Macedonian territories is in the possession of the modern Greek state. 35% is in the possession, unfortunately, of Skopje. Another small percent, about 1%, is in the possession of Bulgaria. The part of our ancient Macedonia, that's all ours, but the part that we have right now, just so happens to contain the city of Pella, where Alexander the Great's father was buried. Okay, Philip. Now, thank God we have that part, and this was all captured in the 19-teens, ladies, in 1912, 1913, when Greece fought and the Greek people shed their blood to reclaim Macedonia. Okay. So, we need the whole world to learn the truth about this issue. We need the whole world to wake up the fact that it's not just this issue that's plaguing Greece, but many other issues. Why? Because the New World Order wants to take over Greece. They want to steal everything from them, their identity, their secrets, their natural resources, which number in the trillions. Think about that now. And they do not want a powerful Greek nation ever again on the face of the earth. Why? Because if that happens, it will change the whole world and make the world a better place. It's just not plain and simple. So, to all the numbnuts out there in Skopje, please shut the F up. You're not Macedonian. You're not the children of Alexander the Great. You're a bunch of Slavs. Just admit it. Okay? No one, thinks less of you because of that, because you're a Slav. But you're a Slav, so just accept it. Okay? You're not Macedonian. Macedonian is Greek. Macedonian is a Greek freaking name. Macedon. Okay? And so on and so forth. All right? All of these things are Greek. All the major cities and countries across Europe, they're named with Greek terms. All of freaking ancient Palestine, Greek terms. The world owes everything to the Greek people, and you owe an apology, and you want to all shut the hell up and stop this issue right now. And as for the American government, Trump and Nimitz, and all these you-know-whats, stop bothering Greece. Stop attacking Greece. Leave Greece the hell alone. Greece has done nothing to nobody. Greece has offered all the good, okay, to all the nations. If it wasn't for Greece, you wouldn't even be speaking English right now. You psychopaths. English is based on the Greek language, all right? And when you say, well, it's also based on German, French, and Latin. Yeah, but German, French, and Latin are all based on Greek too. So get my book, Your Academic Guide to the Greek Language, Culture, and Civilization, which will describe it all. You have heard a broadcast from Greek News On Demand. Visit our website, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. You heard this broadcast via the Great Patriot Radio Network, UCY.tv. Please visit that website today to hear all their live 24-hour broadcasts, UCY.tv. Thank you so much for listening. Please support Greece. Please understand the stakes here, what's going on, and spread the word. John Contreras signing out. GreekNewsOnDemand.com. Thank you so much.